Tu-160 Engels-2 Air Base, Russia. Imagine this, a machine worth more than most people will ever see in their lifetime, sitting vulnerable under the stars. Russia once paraded this beast all the way to Venezuela, flexing its muscles on the world stage. The United States didn't even blink, they simply watched, catalogued its weaknesses, and moved on. But tonight, Ukraine isn't just watching. They are about to execute one of the most audacious military operations of the modern era. In less than 90 seconds, the engines of a Tu-160 strategic bomber, Russia's so-called White Swan, will suffer catastrophic damage. Simultaneously, a nearby arsenal housing 60 Kh-101 cruise missiles will explode in a devastating chain reaction, wiping out months of Moscow's strike capability in a blazing moment. This is not luck. This is not chance. This is precision warfare executed by a swarm of drones that cost less than the luxury watches worn by Russian generals, gliding past billion-dollar defense systems as they chase phantoms in the upper atmosphere. We're not talking about a routine attack on a fuel depot or an armored column. This is something far more profound, an operation designed to rip the very soul out of Russia's nuclear deterrent. The White Swan represents more than aeronautical engineering. For Moscow, it's a symbol of Soviet-era dominance, an untouchable relic of superpower prestige. For the rest of the world, it's a $250 billion antique. Remember when Russia deployed these bombers in Venezuela, hoping to intimidate Washington? The Americans weren't fazed. They simply activated their sensors and quietly noted just how noisy, how visible, how trackable these supposedly fearsome birds really were. For Ukraine, however, this is no laughing matter. The stakes are existential. The stage was set 48 hours earlier. Kyiv didn't stumble upon this opportunity, they engineered it. Ukrainian forces deliberately ambushed a Russian transport convoy moving a brand new Tu-160M. The attack didn't destroy the aircraft, but it crippled it enough to force Russian logistics into an impossible corner. The damaged 20-ton behemoth was parked in the open air on the northern apron, exposed and vulnerable. Due to the chaotic state of Russian military logistics, the reinforced, specialized hangars were unavailable. The Kremlin's most expensive aircraft was now a static target, undergoing emergency repairs under the night sky. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow. 2 a.m., 600 kilometers inside Russian territory. The air above the Volga River feels heavy, oppressive, as if the atmosphere itself is holding its breath. 6 miniature reconnaissance quadcopters glide like ghosts through a thick layer of river fog, searching for a specific silhouette. The sleek, terrifying shape of a Tu-160M bomber. Moscow believed its acclaimed S-400 air defense umbrella made this base untouchable. They assumed no adversary would dare attack the heart of its strategic bomber fleet. They were catastrophically wrong. The stakes are astronomical. If Ukraine succeeds, they won't simply destroy one aircraft, they will cripple Russia's entire winter offensive strategy. Every Kh-101 missile stored in the nearby hardened bunkers represents a cold, dark night for Ukrainian families. By attacking this base, Kyiv is playing the ultimate high-stakes game, stealing Russia's ability to project terror before the first engine even fires. Inside the Ukrainian command center, the tension is stifling. The scouts have the visual blockade. The swarm is coming, 1,000 kilometers away. In the world of strategic logistics, that's a considerable distance. But for 50 Ukrainian Beaver drones, it's a one-way trip to turning the Kremlin's most expensive toy into a very large, highly flammable lawn ornament. Right now, these drones are traversing the heart of Russia at a terrifyingly low altitude of just 80 meters. This isn't simply flying, it's ground-level intrusion. They're threaded along the Volga River, using the riverbanks and the thick morning mist as a natural cloak of invisibility. To the long-range S-400 search radar scanning from kilometers away, these drones are invisible, literally hiding behind the curvature of the land and the tree lines. But Ukraine isn't just relying on low-altitude concealment. They're playing a high-stakes game of electronic decoy. Suddenly, 10 specialized decoy drones break formation and launch into a vertical climb. They're shouting into the Russian sensors, "Hey, look at me! I'm a Storm Shadow cruise missile." And the Russians take the bait completely. Inside the S-400 command vehicle, The radar screen becomes a strobe-like mess of red alerts. The commander, desperate to save the Tu-160M, doesn't wait for confirmation. He releases 448 N-6E missiles. That's $8 million worth of high-tech Russian interceptors launched into the stratosphere to vaporize $50,000 worth of plastic decoy. It's the kind of return on investment that would make a Wall Street short seller weep with joy. As the decoys disappear in fireballs 5 miles up, the Russian crews are probably celebrating, convinced they've just intercepted a NATO-level attack. They have no idea they've just hit phantoms. While the S-400's large eyes are scanning the stars, the teeth at the base, the Pantsir S-1 systems, are waking up to a digital nightmare. The Pantsir is supposed to be the ultimate swarm killer, capable of tracking 300 targets. But reality is far more chaotic than the brochure suggests. The combination of the Volga River's murkiness and the electronic noise of the dying decoys creates a sensory death trap. For exactly 45 seconds, the Pantsir's fire control computer effectively has a seizure. The Russian operators are frantic. Their turrets spin wildly as they try to distinguish between a real threat and ambient static. But here's the brilliant detail. The decoys were programmed to create the illusion of a high-altitude dive. The Pantsir operators, following their training to protect the bomber's backbone, point their dual 30mm cannons skyward. They are so focused on protecting the White Swan from an imaginary attack from above that they have left the low-altitude corridors wide open. Inside Ukrainian mission control, the atmosphere is pitch black. But here's the twist. Hidden in the tall grass, just 400 meters from the massive landing gear of the Tu-160M, 4 shadows are holding their breath. This is an elite sabotage unit. While the world thinks Ukraine is only sending robots, these guys are the boots on the ground for the most audacious heist in aviation history. They're not here to blow it up. They have the avionics bypass codes and a portable starter unit ready to rouse those NK-32 engines. For a few heart-stopping minutes, the heist of the century is truly on the table. They see the opening. The guards are scanning the sky. The Pantsir's turrets are swiveling wildly toward the decoys, and the White Swan is momentarily abandoned. It's the ultimate Grand Theft Auto moment, with a $4 billion nuclear bomber as the prize. However, the Kremlin security layers aren't all digital. Just as the lead operative reaches the boarding ladder, a high-frequency perimeter alarm in red, separate from the air raid siren, breaks the silence. A Russian rapid reaction force has just been activated. Think of it as the base's internal antivirus waking up. In the distance, the headlights of 3 Tiger armored vehicles are already blaring toward the platform. The window for Plan A, the heist, slams shut in a heartbeat. The operatives don't hesitate. They vanish back into the Volga fog like ghosts. On a reinforced tablet, the team leader slides in a final encrypted command. Plan B is active. Telemetry now shows the remaining 40 Beaver drones, which had been waiting in silent orbit above the river, receiving their final kill code. These drones are no longer waiting for a signal. They are now completely autonomous, guided by that internal AI visual matching software we mentioned earlier. The Tu-160M sits there, glowing in the infrared spectrum like a neon sign in a dark alley. The doorman is staring at the ceiling. Ground security is chasing shadows in the grass. And the real thieves' 40 explosive drones are less than 60 seconds from the front door. Russian pride is about to experience a catastrophic structural breakdown, and the doormen won't even see the blow coming. 240. A. The Ukrainian AI aboard the lead Beaver drone is emotionless, but if it were, it would be laughing at Russian doctrine. The Kremlin's antivirus, the Pantsir crews, and the Rapid Reaction Force are all swarming around the Tu-160M, treating it like the lone piece on the chessboard. They are so obsessed with the Swan that they have completely ignored the nest. 400 meters to the east lies the true backbone of Russia's winter terror, the Kh-101 missile stockpile. This is where 60 of Moscow's deadliest cruise missiles are stacked like firewood, fueled and ready to freeze Ukraine. Suddenly, 40 Beaver drones execute a synchronized, high-speed turn. They are no longer looking at the aircraft. They dive toward the stockpile, hugging the tarmac so low they are practically scraping the runway paint. Inside the Pantsir S-1 command vehicles, it is pure, unadulterated chaos. Imagine a guy trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while riding a mechanical bull. That's what the Russian operators are like right now. They're not just firing, they're holding down the triggers in a blind, motorized rage. The dual 30mm cannons are firing cyclically, spewing out 5,000 rounds per minute. Tracer rounds are arcing across the sky in a neon green symphony that looks like an 80 seconds disco in hell, but smells of burnt gunpowder and Russian desperation. 18 Ukrainian Beavers are shot down in spectacular orange fireballs. One drone is clipped, its wings spinning like a frisbee, before it skitters 300 meters across the asphalt. The Russian crews are probably high-fiving, convinced they're winning. But here's the cool detail that will make you smile. The drones aren't just flying, they're learning. As each drone is lost, the remaining 32 adjust their flight paths in real time, using AI to calculate wind changes and the Pantsir's reload cycles. It's like trying to stop a flood with a mesh door. This is swarm logic at its most brutal. Every time a beaver is vaporized, its final microsecond of data, the path of the tracer that hit it, the wind change, the Pantsir's reload cycle is instantly shared among the remaining 32 drones. While the Russians are busy spraying and praying, the remaining drones are executing evasive micromaneuvers and altitude changes that make them look like they're playing the world's deadliest game of dodgeball. These beavers suddenly split up. They ignore the white swan for a moment, leaving the Pantsir crews confused and firing into thin air. Instead, they turn sharply east. Target: the KH-101 missile stockpile. 22 drones hit the reinforced doors almost simultaneously. Inside the missile cache, thousands of gallons of JP-10 jet fuel ignite. We're talking about a thermal event reaching 2,870 degrees Celsius. 60 KH-101 missiles, Russia's entire winter strike budget for this month, begin a series of simmering detonations. Guidance systems melt into expensive pools of silicon and slag, and titanium frames warp into shapes that would baffle even a modern artist. But Ukraine still has 10 beavers up its sleeve. The final 10 drones execute a high-gravity U-turn from hell, twisting so hard their composite wings groan under the stress. They aren't interested in the fuselage or the cockpit. They're staring straight down the throats of those 4 NK-3202 engines, the most powerful fighter engines on the planet. To the Ukrainian AI, those massive shots aren't just parts of an aircraft, they're $10 million invitations to a funeral. Suddenly, Russian ground security realizes the Swan is the target. It's a scene of pure, unadulterated desperation. A lone Russian guard atop a nearby fuel truck unleashes a PKM machine gun, spraying tracers wildly into the darkness. It's like trying to stop a swarm of wasps with a garden hose. A beaver is clipped, its fuel tank ignites, and it plummets to the concrete, skidding like a flaming meteor just inches from the Tu-160's landing gear. The Russian guard celebrates for exactly half a second before the remaining 9 drones execute a final precision maneuver. The lead drone strikes engine number 3. The warhead doesn't just boom, it triggers the Monroe effect, focusing all the explosive force into a needle-thin jet of molten copper, traveling at 7,000 meters per second. Imagine taking a pressure washer, filling it with molten lava, and firing it at the heart of a Rolex. The jet blast tears through the titanium compressor blades, still spinning from the previous engine test. The result is a blade-out event of catastrophic proportions. The precision-machined blades don't just shatter, they become shrapnel, ripping the engine housing apart from the inside out, like a blender full of ball bearings. Then comes the second impact, then the third. The White Swan doesn't explode in a Hollywood fireball, the fuel tanks are relatively low, but it suffers a catastrophic structural divorce. The massive engine pods, the very organs that allow this bird to reach Mach 2, become a steaming soup of scrap metal. Internal hydraulic lines, the bomber's nervous system, are severed by molten spray, bleeding red fluid through the white-painted wings. By the time the last Pantsir on the perimeter manages to hook in and vaporize the final drone, the damage is absolute. The Russian pride, the bird they flew to Venezuela to prove they were still a superpower, is now a $270 million monument to technical incompetence. It sits there, leaning heavily to one side, its throat ripped out and its spine shattered. As the first Su-35 seconds finally roar into the sky, their afterburners illuminating the graveyard below, they are hunting ghosts. The Ukrainian thieves have already delivered their message. Russia didn't just lose a bomber, they lost the invincible myth that protected it. The Kremlin's most expensive bird is now a very heavy, very quiet piece of high-tech scrap metal. And the doormen arrive just in time to see the house burn. Stay tuned because the strategic domino effect of this 60-second masterpiece is about to rewrite the entire winter map. First, the straight math. Ukraine just delivered a masterclass in return on investment. For the price of a few dozen composite body drones, basically high-tech lawnmowers, Kyiv just handed Moscow a repair bill that would make a Fortune 500 CEO swoon. The White Swan isn't just damaged, it's technically decapitated. Replacing those NK-32 engines isn't like swapping a battery in your Tesla. These are hand-built masterpieces, and the factory is already struggling with sanctions. We're talking a $150 million resurrection project that will take at least 8 months. For the rest of the winter, that $250 million bomber is nothing more than a very expensive, very white paperweight. But the KH-101 missile stockpile, that's the real Mike moment. By neutralizing 60 missiles in a 60-second window, Ukraine just eliminated approximately 150 planned sorties. That's hundreds of Ukrainian homes that won't be hit, and dozens of power grids that will remain online. Russia's winter of terror didn't just stumble, it lost its front teeth. And here's the domino effect the Kremlin is currently panicking about. Engels-2 was supposed to be the safe haven for the Russian Air Force. Now, it's a death trap. Within 24 hours of the attack, satellite imagery showed the remaining Tu-160 seconds and Tu-95 seconds being scrambled and scattered where to? Tu-160 Air Base, in the Arctic Circle. Think of that logistical nightmare. Moving your entire strategic fleet 3,000 kilometers farther away is like moving your office to a different time zone and still trying to commute. It means more flight hours, more wear and tear on aging airframes, and significantly less time on station over the target. For every White Swan they try to wrap in bubble wrap, a Ukrainian F-16 or Storm Shadow gets a fresh open invitation to the front lines. The myth of the invincible umbrella hasn't just been punctured, it's been shattered. Ukraine didn't need to capture the White Swan to win. They just had to prove that in the 21st century, a swan is just a very large, very slow target for a spiteful beaver. So, what do you think? Was this the smartest tactical move of the war so far? Or did Russia just have the most expensive, worst day ever? If you were the Russian commander, would you pull back the frontline defenses to protect your pride, or would you let the swans bear the heat? Share your thoughts in the comments, and tell me which piece of technology impressed you the most. Be sure to hit that like button if you love watching the underdog change the game, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the engineering of invisible warfare. Until next time.